Business. My name is Jeremy Chara. With me today is Troy Erickson. I want to give you a flyby of the world of DMARC, and we'll introduce why we're talking together, how we got connected. January of this year, we started getting some emails. So if those of you that don't know, I run a managed service provider called VIA. We support a lot of customers, primarily education in the world of schools. And we started getting some emails from our customer, tickets coming in saying, hey, we're using this platform called School Messenger to blast out email, like newsletters and things like that to our parents. And they're all going to junk email. And what's going on? How can you help? And normally that's one where we're like, you gotta figure that out on your own. But it was a significant thing, and it was impacting some significant people at the organization. So we're like, we'll jump in. So we discovered that in February, now remember, this is January. In February, Google, Apple, and nameless other email providers were going to start enforcing this thing called DMARC, which I looked at and I'd heard about it, but I never really put two and two together. And I thought, okay, well, that's in February. But so we toyed around with it. We started playing with it. And so we rolled out DMARC for School Messenger, and poof, all the emails suddenly started going back to the inbox, not showing up in junk email. So at the end of the day, it's what I'm finding is DMARC solves a ton of stuff. And we're going to talk about what that is, how that works, but it doesn't solve everything. And that's one of the misnomers is we end up Googling a little bit, stumble on a site called mailgenius.com. And we're looking at this, and I was like, this is genius. No pun intended, but I'm starting to, so Mail Genius lets you essentially send test emails, and it kind of scores them and tells you what's good, what's bad, and so on. I was like, this is awesome, because we can stick to DMARC, and then we can just start pointing everybody else to this Mail Genius when they get, this went to, and so I was like, who created this site? And so long story short, that's where the road led, and I met Troy. So let's start off with DMARC. Troy, do you want to take that one? What is DMARC, and why do we need it?
Sure. So DMARC, domain-based messaging, authentication, reporting, and conformance. Not that you need to know all that stuff, because it sounds like alphabet soup to a lot of people, but essentially it's a security feature. So it is possible, believe it or not, still in 2024, to spoof other people via email. What that means is pretend that you're somebody else, and there's a lot of bad actors that do that. So DMARC is basically a security feature you can implement with your domain so nobody else can pretend to be you. If you've ever gotten an email where it looked like they were trying to pose as somebody else, or like a company asking for your passwords, people try to do that anyway, but it looks really, really realistic if you don't have DMARC set up. And they can also get a hold of your email. They can start sending emails from your domain. It's like really, really bad. Now, obviously, this is something that I'm not trying to scare you. It's not about to happen to everybody. But the way Google looks at it is, if you don't have this set up, we can't trust you as much, because we're not 100% sure it's you. And even if it probably is you, there's a decent chance that you might get spoofed, and then other Gmail users are going to have a difficult time, and it's going to create a bad experience for them. And it's not just Gmail. It's just that this year they put out an update saying that they put it out last year, saying that February of this year, anybody who sends bulk emails, so like 5,000 or more emails at a time, you really should have a DKIM set up, which is like a subsector of DMARC. So I'll talk a little bit about how those things work together. But does that make sense? I'm trying to make it make sense to somebody who has never heard of it.
Totally. And yeah, I think that's good. And yeah, spelling out the acronym, I'm like, 2 points for you, dude. Like I don't like there's it's and I think one of the things that blew me away, actually two things. One was we hit February. So Google, Apple, everybody was like, okay, we're rolling this out in February. And I was kind of looking at February. I'm like, okay, this is going to be like D-Day, because by then we built this little service, and it's like Y2K if you've been around long enough, right? I'm like, okay, it's going to happen, and like all these emails are going to go spam, and it didn't. We kind of went through February, and people were like, yeah, we're fine. But what's happening is it's almost like a tourniquet to where Google and everybody else is kind of slowly but surely over time cranking up the I would say requirements, the severity of the filtering. So now here we are, we're recording this in June, and I'm starting to see like, okay, like it's now really having a significant impact, but there's still stuff that if you don't have DMARC, it goes through. So you end up like getting a false sense. And I had a thought just as you were talking. I don't even know if this is going to work. I'm going to try it and see. Is this right side up for you?
Very cool. It looks right.
All right. I didn't test it, so if it's all upside down, we can edit it later. So in a nutshell, we've got your email server that is sending email, and I just want to kind of like put a picture to what Troy was saying, because it took me and a lot of other folks a while to get the direction. So let's just say let's just put mg.com. Don't go there. I don't know what it is. I was just thinking Mail Genius, and I just went mg.com. So mg.com. So we've got Bob at mg.com is an email address from there. So the thing that DMARC does is essentially create a list. I'm just glancing to make sure everybody can see this. Create a list of these are the people that are authorized to send email on behalf of mg.com. So this is the DMARC list. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So DMARC is really about who is able to send as you, meaning who can send as mg.com. That's where the DMARC list, and it's not exactly a DMARC list. It's an SPF list and everything else, but this is what it impacts. So all these other email servers. So this is Troy. This is what I heard you saying is all these, which could be phishing, sending out as mg.com. Or they could be services that we're signed up for that are sending email on our behalf. That's what DMARC does, is let us say that one are good, whereas this guy, he didn't make the list, and so all the email coming from him will immediately be discarded from there. Yeah, am I saying that the right way?
Yeah. So to take it another level, there's two things that you have to do before you implement your DMARC policy. Because DMARC is literally just a policy that tells you if somebody tries to send mail as you, does it get approved or does it get denied, right? So there's 3 levels to that. There's, you can say none, which is basically nothing, like there's no security. There's quarantine, which is if somebody tries to send email as you and they're not allowed, it goes to spam. And then there's reject, which will just block the email. But in order, like before you set up that policy, you have to do 2 other things and set those records up. So one is DKIM, so Domain Keys Identified Mail. So what that is, let's say, for example, you're sending from Outlook, ActiveCampaign, and Zoho Help Desk for your customer support. So each one of those different platforms will give you a key, essentially. Think of it as like you're giving them a key to the house, right? So you go to their platform, you grab the key and you put it into the DNS of your domain. So that way, Google, Outlook, Yahoo, whoever's receiving the email, they're checking your DNS and like, hey, there's a key in there. This email's coming from ActiveCampaign. This email is good to go. So you have to get one key from each platform you send from. Don't forget any, otherwise that's where you could really mess up. And things could get blocked by accident. Then there's SPF, which is Sender Policy Framework. What that is it's one record. And so with DKIM, you're getting one record from all the different platforms you send from. So you could have one for each. You could have a ton of different DKIM records. But with SPF, you only want one. And it's kind of a way to kind of like double confirm what you've tried to implement with DKIM. So with SPF, you have one record and you include all the different platforms you send from. So normally a SPF record would be like V equals SPF1, and it'll say include ActiveCampaign, include Outlook, include Zoho Help Desk. If we give a real example, it looks a little bit different, but in simplicity, that's how it looks. And then when you have those 2 things set up, your DMARC policy is just telling you what to do if a certain email fails those tests.
Yeah, awesome. And that's the I won't flip my camera back and forth. I'll just put it right there. That's the list. And that's one of the things that we find is we actually ran into a pretty large customer who was like, don't worry, I'm gonna do DMARC myself. And we're like, cool, go for it, have at it. And they called us a little while later, exactly with what you're saying, Troy, because SPF, it's not, I draw it like a little piece of paper right there, but it's not that easy. It's like one long line. It looks kind of like code, but if you don't get it right, the challenge is it invalidates the whole thing. Like you put a comma in the wrong place, and so as soon as you do that, that's like saying, okay, this is the people that are authorized to send email on my behalf, and because I put a comma in the wrong place, all of that is invalid, and all of the email starts going to junk mail, and people are freaking out and all that kind of stuff. So the SPF list is a big deal. The DKIM, and I like what you're saying. The DKIM's a little easier because it's kind of like each place is like, here's our key. You throw that in your DNS. Here's our key. And in reality, it's a cryptography key that it uses to add a little signature to every single email that they send as you. So the reality of what's happened, I think, Troy, is as of February, things are just getting way more secure.
Yeah, so Google announced that come February, if you're sending more than 5,000 bulk emails at once, you need to have a DKIM key set up. Because yes, you can make it to the inbox without one, but now if you're trying to send more than 5,000, you're most likely going to go to spam. Now, this didn't just get completely implemented on February 1st, and so they're going to drip it out over the course of this year. They even said that by June, they expected it to be 100% complete, but nobody really knows what the status is currently because Google is very hush about these things. So that's kind of the status. Yeah, it's like you just get one DKIM record from each place that you send from, and it's just a simple text record, TXT, that you copy and paste and put into your DNS. Then the SPF is kind of like the key chain because you put all the different keys on one record. And then DMARC is just like your security policy or like your alarm system, for example. So that's how I like to break it down for people. But yeah, these are things that are not going to guarantee that you make it into the inbox, but they're things that you should set up right away as a prerequisite before you even start sending email.
Yeah, but that actually, you made me think of something. There is no guarantee that you're going into the inbox. And that's when I'm coming back to, like, when you roll out DMARC, people will start thinking you're a mail magician. Like, it all just starts working. But all you've done is increase the reputation of the email to at least enough. Like, one of the things Troy was saying is you have your options when it comes to DMARC of none, quarantine, and reject. And what I'm seeing a lot of people do is they're like, oh yeah, to implement DMARC, just turn on and put none in there. And that's working right now. But again, as that tourniquet turns tighter and tighter and tighter, Google, Yahoo, everything else is going to try and point you to that. So the reputation that your email has, yeah, it depends on DMARC, but there's a whole bunch of other things. And Troy, I think that's where you've got, that's your specialty, is how do you make sure that, so let me ask you that, because that's the killer question. Everybody's like, now you've got not just the junk mailbox, but you also have the inbox and the other, or the promo, or the whatever tab. All the email providers are trying to make email great again, right? And so how do you get your emails in the inbox?
Yeah, so to be clear, before I acquired MailGenius.com, my partner Jesse was the founding member of that. So prior to that, I've run an email agency for the last 5 years called Email Paramedic, and we're rebranding right now. If the domain goes through, emailmarketing.com, I really hope it does. But the point is, I've been doing all types of email marketing for the last 5 years, right? So I've gotten really good at selling when it comes to working with companies who have their own email list. And now we're getting really good at doing cold emails. So reaching out to people who don't know us and trying to book calls, right? So the biggest thing that affects deliverability when you're trying to do either one of those two things is your reputation. Like you said, there's two reputations. There's the domain reputation and there's the IP reputation. Now, if you're just starting out, we'll talk about the IP reputation first, because if you're brand new, you're going to be on a shared IP. What that means is, for example, if you're on ActiveCampaign, they have IP pools. So IP is like a neighborhood where your account is inside of their space of the internet, and they group all the different senders together. So if you're new, they kind of put you in like a low to medium. But if you've been sending for a long time and you have DMARC implemented correctly and you get really high open rates, you get a lot of clicks, a lot of replies, nobody really reports you as spam. Not many people, delete the email before they read it. Like all those things are going to bump up your reputation and get you to a higher IP reputation. And at the same time, all those things will improve your domain reputation, because your domain reputation is strictly based on what you have done with your own domain. So they both affect each other. But with that being said, it also works on the contrary, right? So if you do anything that seems a little bit suspicious to Google, like you get a lot of spam complaints, not many people open your emails, a lot of people delete them, all those different things, it reduces the reputation of your domain, as well as a lot of times you'll get demoted to a lower IP reputation. And this is especially important if you have your own IP, because a lot of people have private IPs. And anytime that you set up DMARC, you also want to make sure that you warm up slowly, because if you don't do that, if you just go from like, hey, I've never sent an email from this domain, or you just implement DMARC, and you just send to thousands of people on the first day, that's another red flag that they look for. So anytime you have a new domain or you implement DMARC, you definitely want to warm up and just start with a few people on the first day, and then just keep doubling it every day until you're at your desired volume.
Got it. Yeah, and so what you see in a lot of, I'll call them fishers. A lot of fishers will just go register a new domain that nobody knows about and then start blasting the world from this new domain, trying to get people to click on it. And it's a cat and mouse game. All the email providers are catching up to that. So it makes sense for a legitimate business to slowly start stepping into that. Now, I'll tell you from our side, in rolling out DMARC for companies, in smaller organization, it's actually pretty easy. A lot of times we're like, you don't even need us to do it for you. Just do these things and all that. What I've found, and I've actually talked to a number of IT folks. So here's the thing. It's probably backwards, but it says reject if you read backwards. That's the pinnacle of DMARC, is where you can say DMARC equals reject. And what that does is tell all the email servers of the world, if it's not on my DMARC list, immediately throw it away. Don't even look at it. Like if it's saying it's coming from my domain, reject it. Your email reputation goes up even more when you do that. And it makes, in a nutshell, an impenetrable phishing fortress to where no one can send from your domain or pretend to send from your domain if they're not authorized. And hang on, sidebar. A lot of people are like, DMARC is the end of phishing. And that it's not. I guess in one sense, it's true. In another sense, it's not. There's still nothing that stops somebody from having a Gmail address like bob59692 at gmail.com and putting the first and last name as Elon Musk and like sending emails in as this, and people are like, oh, look, it's Elon. Like that's gonna always happen. And the only way to stop that, because it's legitimate email, is education, right? But you cannot send from, in this case, MG or MailGenius or whatever domain you're talking about once you've deployed DMARC correctly. So back on off the sidebar, the thing that I've seen, and I've talked to a couple IT guys, is they're like, this is not something I'm willing to do. And I've heard it twice from two different guys. They said, nobody gets fired for an email going to junk. But I get fired if I flip that thing to reject and we missed somebody over there that it was the CEO's pet project and our latest marketing campaign or whatever goes to spam everywhere. Like I'm not doing it. And so that's where we've been brought in many times, because rolling out DMARC, what I find, and I don't know if you've run into this too, Troy, but it's a lot more communication and project management than it is technology. Like, the tech of it is actually not too bad, but it's figuring out where is all of our email coming from. And that's one of the things is like, how do you, it's one of the questions we were thinking about, Troy, like, how do you track your results when you roll out DMARC, or how do you find all these sources? Any idea?
Yeah, so you're right. The very first step, especially with a smaller organization, would just be to ask around, be like, hey, what are the different platforms we use? And then once you find those platforms, if you've done this before, or if you have, somebody like me or Jeremy guiding you, it's pretty simple to set up the tech. But if it's a pretty large organization, then sometimes you would need tools to help you figure out where these things are coming from. So actually, you could change your DMARC record so it actually sends a report. Now, the report is not going to be something you can read, it's something that computers can read. So what you can do is basically set that report to go to a specific email address. And there's companies out there, like we don't do this yet. Like we'll give you a full breakdown of your DMARC if it's set up correctly at mailgenius.com, but there's companies like Easy DMARC, you can just set it to their email address if you have their monthly subscription, and then they'll kind of like translate it to English for you. So you can see like, oh, it looks like somebody tried to send an email with this domain and it got blocked. So you can be like, oh, we forgot about that one. Or you could be like, oh, like somebody was trying to spoof us or somebody was trying to phish. So those are the different ways that you could use it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to make sure everybody gathers from this. DMARC is like, when you really get what it is, it's pretty awesome. Like you create a DNS record that literally impacts the entire globe. Like your one little DMARC message tells every email server of the world, if you get an email from me, report it back. And that's where you can, like you gave an example of Easy DMARC. There's probably 100 of those kind of things out there. And all the email servers, whenever they get an email from you or your domain, they'll send a little report back to Easy DMARC or whatever vendor you're using, which will graph it all out. It'll say, okay, like 1,000 emails from your domain came from that server and 10 from this one. There's some weird ones coming from that one. 100,000 came from this. And you can see the times of months and all that. And that's one of the things when you're rolling out DMARC, it's not like okay, we're gonna do this and then tomorrow you're done. You kind of go on a discovery mission, if you will. You flip on this little, I call it discovery mode for DMARC, where you're just watching, because I mean, we're talking about like small domains like MailGenius and things like that, but there's domains out. I mean, think of somebody like Cisco or Microsoft or I don't know, big company X. Like they probably have hundreds of vendors that are sending on their behalf, and so it's almost like a full research project to figure out where are all these guys so that we can make them all DMARC compliant. So that's part of the game.
Yeah, another free tool would be postmaster.google.com. So that's Google Postmaster. As long as you have DMARC set up, you can get some free reports, and that'll show you your domain reputation, IP reputation, spam rate, authentication, any delivery errors, things like that. And it'll tell you if you're generally passing like what percentage of the time for SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, but it won't necessarily tell you where those are coming from. So that's where you'd have to pay for a subscription to something like Easy DMARC.
Yeah, got it. I'm curious, Troy, have you had any DMARC rollouts gone bad yet?
Gone bad? No, it's like we really try to emphasize to people that, hey, you have to like tell us everything. Otherwise, there's going to be issues that come up. So, no, we haven't had any like mass campaigns go out with delivery errors, to thousands of people, because we check all that stuff with a test email. You'd be surprised how many different mistakes you can catch with a test email. So, like, always do that if you're sending a really important email or to a lot of people. Because the other thing that you may not think about is if you do send, not only is that an opportunity cost that you just missed out on, but you can also damage your domain. If you send out an email and something goes wrong, it goes to the wrong people, it gets marked as spam, it gets completely blocked. There's a lot of things that can happen.
Yeah, and I'm giving Troy's, that's why I'm here, is I'm giving Troy's company a completely shameless plug, because he's 100% right. Like when I first saw MailGenius, I sent a test email to it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And like, it didn't hit me, like what little piece of gold I had discovered right there. And until it was, and actually I was like, oh, cool. It's like an email tester, because there's lots of things similar to that out there. But it wasn't until we had customers. So I asked you, did you have DMARC go bad? I did. So we had a customer who we did a discovery. We thought we found all of them, and they were like so anxious to get it to DMARC equals reject. They're like, just do it, dude. Just I'm like, we've only done it for 30. We've only monitored for, and I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, just do it. And so we flip it, and a couple days go by, we're like, sweet, awesome. And all of a sudden we get this frantic call like, stop it, undo it, so that's where it can go wrong, is because if you forget somebody and they send a blast of 3,000 emails out, not only do all of those essentially get eliminated, I mean, they get terminated by all the email servers, but it immediately impacts the reputation of that email server, and whoever's managing that is like, what the heck just happened? And so they're going to contact. So it's one of those like, just take your time on that. But back to Mail Genius, that's where I was like, man, now initially I was like, why would you ever buy this? Because I think it gives you like, I don't know, 5, 10 like free tests or something like that. I'm like, why? I didn't get it. And that's where, once I got it, I was like, okay, this is sweet, where you can actually go to a customer and just exactly what Troy was saying. Like, before you blast this email out to 3,000 people, just test it first. Just make sure that you're not like, you don't have like too many hyperlinks or too many, like a photo in there that's like that's what it's useful for. And I'm like, now that makes total sense. And like, I'm like, that should be like in the back pocket of just about any marketing company. So anyway, that's my quasi shameless plug for your own company.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's nice. The reason I acquired Mail Genius is because I used to use it all the time. And I was like, I know there's a lot of people that this would help. And I know there's a lot of people in general that use it, because there's over 1 million emails tested every single year. So yeah, we check for SPF, DKIM, DMARC, blacklist for both the domain and IP. We check for bad links. We check for spammy language. We check for images that are too big, and like countless other things that could be wrong with an email. And I tell people all the time, I was like, hey, make sure that you're testing often, not just once, because those things change every time. And just because one email inboxes doesn't mean the next one will. So it's like really, really important. And we're trying to build a suite of tools so people know that they can test their emails, and they're going to have more confidence than ever that they're going to hit the inbox, and they don't have to worry tomorrow or next week or next month, next year.
Awesome. And that's where I think we'll wind down, and that's what we do. We are the ones that walk through rolling out email, or rolling out DMARC, and making sure email is solid across the whole organization. And I would say it's only for groups that are a little larger. Like we've had folks come and we send email from there and there. I'm like, well, just I don't want to say figure that out, but do that yourself. Like, we're happy to help, but that's something that's no problem. What we've done is, when somebody signs up for our DMARC service, we assign a full-on project manager, because 99% of the game is communication. And okay, we've got this, we found another one. Who's in charge of that? Who did that for your domain? And just communication, which IT folks are infamously tagged as not being the greatest at. So we project manage the whole thing and get it all rolled out to where you eventually can get to DMARC equals reject for your organization without accidentally getting fired. So that's what we do. So that said, I mean, Troy and I are talking right now. I think there's going to be a landing page by the time it's said and done below this video. Feel free to click that link, and it can take you in either direction, either to VIA or to Mail Genius. And best of luck rolling out DMARC to you in the future. Troy, any last words?
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, just click that link. You can join my email list and Jeremy's email list. So you can try out Mail Genius, get 3 free tests, and then whatever Jeremy is going to send you, especially if you've got a larger organization, he can actually implement the policy for you. Awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks, Troy. It's been awesome. It's fun because I was like, wow, I can draw while somebody else is talking. Normally, I'm just doodling while talking to myself. It's great.
There you go.
So maybe we could do this again in the future.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you all soon.